Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Convo Couch. Pasta Jardula here.
And I'm Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue is still spinning on those ones and twos.
You're too much.
Ones and twos.
You're too much.
Ones and twos.
I can't.
And Pedro's here too.
He is.
Where's Pedro from?
He's a llama.
From?
He's from Peru.
Peru.
Where else would he be from?
There's a lot of llamas in Peru.
There's some in Bolivia and Chile, I think.
There is?
Yeah.
Is it a different type of llama in the desert in the Middle East? Or is it like alpacas or something? Or is there a difference?
Middle East?
Yeah, isn't there like llamas and stuff? Camels and llamas, or is it just camels?
I wasn't aware about llamas over there.
Trey
I
Wright.
like alpacas too.
Alpacas. Trey Wright was the first to come into the Dore fam. Would you believe that?
Yes.
Who's always here first to the party. Like, hey, what's going on? I got here early. Can I help set up? I'm Trey Wright. Here you go. Sending you love to you all, and fuck these haters.
Seriously, right? They're hating on all of us right now. We were watching Niko with Max, and we have Marcie Smith Parenti, who wrote the article for the Gray Zone. And we're going to talk about her article because it is an excellent angle at what's happening regarding the vid. So we're excited to talk about that. And that's going to be on Rokfin only, sadly, because, even though it's directly an article and there's statistics that are being cited, you know how they are. They're going to take us down in no time. So we can't talk about it on YouTube, which is why you guys should always watch the Rokfin.
Watch the Rock, ROKFIM. Sign up for free, and you don't even have to sign up. You can just go on there and watch now.
Yeah, so.
And if you have some extra love, you can give us a Super Ray contribution, because YouTube took away our Super Chats. Just think about that. They took away the mechanism. That's fascism at its finest.
No, it's not fascism, because they're private companies.
Oh, yeah, sure. And they're being told what to do by the government. They're being whisked off to Congress to being told, you should do this and you should do that, and what kind of satellites do they operate on? Are those not the people's satellites right now that help them, run their shit all around the planet? And also, if they want to be a private company, they should abide by the law. And the law of 230 in the NDAA says you have to make a choice between being a platform or a publisher. And if you are a platform, then you are exempt from being sued. But if you are a platform, if you choose to do that, the law means you have to be even across the board. You can't pick winners. But guess what? Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube's is doing, fam. Picking their winners. Their idea of what a winner is. And people who tell the truth are not a winner.
More than winners, they're picking what information is true or not.
Yes.
Right? They're picking like what they consider as gatekeepers the truth, which I'm not like. I think a lot of people are smart enough to know what is true and what isn't. And I think even if that weren't the case, free speech is essential to revolution, even though these cosplay cappuccino commies would disagree, because they've been going after the Assange activists. They've been going after me. And I have literally 99%, maybe like 98% in ideology and commonality with them. But what I don't have is the authoritarianism of some of these people, that they just want to impose their whole belief on everybody. And if you don't agree, to the gulags you go. And I think that's ridiculous.
I was having a talk with some friends yesterday who said they're going to still support Gavin Newsom in the recall because there's nobody worth value. And I was like, okay, guys. And this is something a friend of mine's been telling me too as well. He goes, the thing that's crazy about the progressives right now with the Democratic Party is that they're not even holding on to incremental wins. They're hanging on to incremental losses. In other words, they're saying, well, I got to vote for him because this other guy's going to do so much more worse things. Yeah. So it's not like you're even voting to get a little bit of something. You're voting to hold on so you don't get fucked as much. Yeah. And that's something that's really crazy, because when you start playing that game, you're in a bad position. There's no way for you to even move forward. You're just in a defensive mode, shielding off stuff. And it's kind of sad, because we have to start doing that. You have to be able and willing to say, you know what? If you fuck around, if you don't give the people anything, we're not going to give you our vote. These people just hand over their vote no matter what, because they're scared of the boogeyman underneath the bed. And they know this, and that's why they use the whole COVID thing to scare the bejesus out of people. It's like they got people so afraid right now, you know.
Anyway, so you want
I do have a boomer moment, though. I have one question.
You have a lot of boomer
moments.
Well,
explain to me what cosplay means. COSPLAY. I see that a lot.
Like, the cosplaying is when you dress up as a character. Let's say I wanted to be the Tomb Raider. Yeah, I know. And I dress up like the Tomb Raider, Lara Croft. I'm cosplaying as Lara Croft.
So it's Halloween?
Yeah, basically. You're, but it's not for Halloween. It's like any time. People dress up as these characters.
So when you call somebody a cosplay, you're saying they're just playing make-believe.
They're fake.
They're being fake. You're dressing up like Putin, but you're not Putin, or whoever. Like you know what I'm saying. You're acting like Che Guevara, and you're like whatnot, but you're not really ready for revolution. You want to sit at home and have your pizza delivered to you. Yeah. You don't want to get your hands dirty. Okay, I get it. Thank you. This boomer moment brought to you by the letter C. And let's talk about what's going on in Haiti.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining in today. So I got a little quick video that will catch you up to speed. I watched a couple of them. I mean, it's really not, I mean, we're going to report on it, but it's just sad because there's no help for Haiti, you know, when shit goes down. But yet we can send trillions of dollars overseas to fuck up in Afghanistan. And the moment we put out, we're back to where we started from. But yet people who are right around the corner in our backyard, we're going to let them just die and suffer. So here's a video, get you up to speed.
Les fractures, on a des fractures ouvertes, on a des fractures fermées, fractures au niveau du bassin, en luxation et fractures au niveau du fémur, de l'humérus, c'est-à-dire c'est cubitus, que c'est fermé ou ouvert.
Support the government and assist those impacted by the deadly earthquake. Our emergency relief coordinator, Martin Griffiths, allocated $8 million from the UN Central Emergency Response Fund to support the humanitarian response.
Fam, $8 million. Oh my God. Wow. We just spent $1 trillion in fucking Afghanistan, or $2 trillion over the course of 20 years. But on our doorstep, our neighbors are in desperate need and desperate help, and we don't see fleets of boats or, you know, medical supplies going over there. When it's time to help people, what do you want us to do? I want you to waste all your money on war and not take care of the people who are on our doorstep. And I know I have a close, you know, love for Haitian people in my heart because I grew up in South Florida. I have one of my closest friends, Phil Duval Saint. I love you, Phil, the Haitian sensation. I know he's weeping for his family over there right now. And, you know, obviously, Zita, I love you, Zita. If you watch my show, I'm going to send this to you, who took care of my stepfather until he passed away. You know what I'm saying? I worked with a lot of Haitian people in South Florida. But Jesus Christ, they're on our doorstep, fam. They're on our doorstep, and just look what they're going through. They get an earthquake that's 7.7 and change, and then 2 days later, they get hit by a tropical storm. So now we go from 1,600 dead, and God knows how many more, to 2,000 dead, and we can't get in there and do anything. Where's the American authorities at? Where are you at? Where's the Coast Guard? Where's the help? And don't sit here and tell me that we're doing something. You see nothing going on there. It's disgusting.
Because there's nothing to be gained from helping Haiti. That's the bottom line, right? This is when some people who are so naive to say, well, we're over there helping Afghan women. regain their autonomy and feminism. And you have to understand that sounds ridiculous to us because we know that the United States only gets involved in other countries, not to help, but if there is something they can get out of it, which is why you can go back to Rwanda and how long it took the United States to actually interfere in times when they should have interfered because they didn't have anything to gain.
Yep.
And that's how you know that they're full of shit when it comes to humanitarian aid and democracy. And the Afghan papers also prove that, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later, where they say the United States doesn't go in there to spread democracy. They talked about bringing peace, but peace for us means making countries peaceful, means making countries do our bidding.
Yeah.
So
compliant. So this is from the AP. Johnny, you can roll the drone footage as I read it. You don't necessarily, go on the words, whatever you want to do. A hospital in southwestern Haiti where a powerful earthquake flattened homes, shops, and other buildings over the weekend were so overwhelmed with patients that many had to lie in the patios, corridors, verandas, and hallways. Then the approach of the storm, expected to drench the quake zone Monday night, forced officials to relocate them as best they could, given the hospital's poor conditions. Even those patients were somewhat fortunate. Haiti's Civil Protection Agency on Monday raised the death toll from Saturday's earthquake to 1,419 and the number of injured to 6,000, many who have had to wait under the burning heat, even on the airport tarmac for help. And you can just see it, just the infrastructure in Haiti's terrible. Yeah. It's been deprived and raped of its resources. It's just a sad story. And, there's a little Haiti community in South Florida. Like I said, they're on the doorstep. Growing up in South Florida, I had a lot of Haitian friends that I work with. I would always scream "Sac passe." And it's just a shame to see what's happening, and we're doing nothing to help. We could help. We can do a lot more for Haiti. Haiti's another one of those countries, just like Afghanistan, that should be just ripe for tourism. It should have a great infrastructure, tourism, people coming in, whatnot.
It's right next to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. And the Haitian people, the pride in which they work with, the way they work in South Florida, it's amazing. You know what I'm saying? They do so much for our elders there. A lot of Haitian nurses in South Florida. I just tip my hat off to them, and I love them. And I'm really sorry that we're lagging behind. I wish we would do more. But then after we have all this situation, fam, they have the earthquake, and now here comes Tropical Storm Grace comes sweeping right through over Haiti with drenching rains just 2 days after the powerful earthquake battered the impoverished Caribbean nation, adding to the misery of thousands who lost loved ones, suffered injuries, or found themselves homeless, and forcing overwhelmed hospital and rescuers to act quickly. You can see with just water all in the streets. After nightfall, heavy rain and strong winds whipped at the country's southwestern area, hit hardest by Saturday's quake, and officials warned that rainfall could reach up to 15 inches in some areas before the storm moved on. Port-au-Prince, the capital, also saw heavy rains. Grace regained tropical storm status after previously falling to a level of a tropical depression. The storm arrived on the same day. The country's Civil Protection Agency raised the death toll from the earthquake to 1,419 and the number injured to 6,000, many whom had to wait for medical help lying outside in the wilting heat. So that's what happened, fam. Pretty much, like I said, they raised the death toll after the tropical storm whipped through to about 2,000 and many more injured, and they're still just pulling bodies out from underneath these buildings and rubbish. Yeah. And some people are still alive trying to hold on. You
notice how very little the mainstream media is talking about this. How they always talk about the dumbest shit, but they're not talking about this because it's not on the radar. Unless, like I said, the U.S. has a special interest and then they tell, CNN, MSNBC, hey, talk about this. They'll barely mention it and they'll be like, oh, because they don't want to look like, what's that there? They don't want to look like.
Next section.
Oh, okay. They don't want to look like they're terrible. So I don't know. They have to mention it, but at the same time, they don't go deep into it because there's no vested interest for us. But I added a tweet, Johnny, from this woman that's always tweeting about Haiti, and her name is Madame Boukman, and she's there.
United States brought aid?
Yeah, well, this is what it says. Aid from Venezuela to Haiti.
From Venezuela.
Unloaded since last night. This is August 16th. Other countries also provided aid. The criminal puppet mafia regime has yet to reach out to the majority of victims that have been without food, water, and medical for the past 2 days. And she's referring to the current government in Haiti. And of course, this is from Venezuela. You can even go to the previous tweet too and just look at the pictures that the plane load of non-perishable food and water from Venezuela arrived in Haiti. Thanks, Nicolas Maduro.
A country that's in poverty themselves right now has to reach, but that just shows
that's being sanctioned by the United States is able to give so much aid to Haiti. I mean, this just tells you guys, right? This just tells you guys what I'm talking about here. This is like, so Nicolas Maduro and the commies, right? Because they're more like socialists in Venezuela, but they are able to give aid to Haiti while simultaneously being screwed by the West, and somehow the West just has very little showing, and just after especially involving themselves in this whole, coup, so to speak.
Yep.
It's terrible.
To all my Haiti friends out there, I love you, my Haitian friends. Phil, I love you. Please give love to your family. I'll reach out to you today, and I hope everything works out. I wish America would kick its ass into gear. But, even my friend Phil would even say, he's like, yeah, like, we just, Haitians, they get used to, like, not getting the help or the love and all the corrupt governments and everything and whatnot and stuff. But like I said, I have a place in my heart, being from South Florida, and I hope that we really can kick it into gear. And I don't know, fam, but people will start asking, hey, dude, where can we donate some money or some goods or whatnot? I don't even know how to get them there effectively because of the corrupt government and trying to get aid and everything in there. It's just a shame. So all we can do is pray and send love, I guess.
I think maybe look into that account. Maybe she has some good ideas on Twitter. Madame, I think her name is Baku, the one we just had on, because maybe she probably has some real connections in there. But like you said, it's hard to get it directly to them because of the government.
Okay.
All right, so we have Reef Barker. Thank you for the Super Ray contribution.
It is always
No, you don't do that. When I get it, you don't get to say it.
Hold on, Johnny, can I give this to you real quick? Right there.
Orion Hunter, thank you for the Super Ray contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch.
Why are you reading Super Rays? You're taking it away from me.
No, that's it.
See how you jump on in just so you won't get it? It's always appreciated on the couch. You're gonna piss off Glory Jones. We have a long section. Okay. Glory Jones was gonna be upset that you didn't.
Because you don't focus, fam. Focus.
All right, I'll focus. Let me get this up for you. Go ahead, Pam.
All right. So I wanted to go over this tweet because I just, okay, so here's what's going on. We're going to go over Afghanistan a little bit further today because people still don't get what's going on. And I'm a firm believer that the United States wouldn't leave without something in return. And now more and more things are coming out. So the U.S. reportedly gave millions to the Taliban, and this has been proven. And we're going to go back and look at an article that shows you how this was happening, how they were being paid to protect trucks and convoys, and also, of course, the poppy fields, the opium fields, right? But what's happening is this whole trend in independent media where I would call it more progressive media, still like blue checks like Ryan Grimm. And then, of course, you have Jordan on Status, who has been having terrible analysis as of late. People always point out, he does great on the ground work. But when it comes to analysis, it's a little off or a lot off. And he said, I don't say it often, but credit to Joe Biden, courageous decision on Afghanistan. Now we'll have to see if all American troops are actually withdrawn rather than have the troops, quote, leaving Iraq with thousands and hanging around for a decade. In his tweet, he pretty much recognizes that they're not really leaving, right? There are leaving. A lot of them are leaving, but there's a vast amount that are mercenaries and a vast amount that are returning there, about 7,000. And, well, Afghanistan. They're not leaving Afghanistan. So here's another example of giving credit to Joe Biden where Joe Biden doesn't deserve it, right? And I'm going to go over again why Joe Biden doesn't really deserve credit. Here he is. Kyle Kalinske. If Biden also pulls out of Iraq, I'll offer my services as White House press secretary. Wow. So now they're like, wow, Joe Biden, he's so great. Let's get him to, which is a good thing. If Joe Biden were to pull out of Iraq, that's a good thing. Sean P. McCarthy Biden really is trying to make it 2-for-2 on Catholic presidents assassinated by the deep state. This is people who mock the deep state all the time, who don't even know what the deep state is. And now they're talking about Joe Biden being in opposition to the deep state. I mean, for me, it was just comical. I'm like, is this a joke? Because Joe Biden is BFF with the deep state. Joe Biden has voted for every single war. He is not this based hero they're trying to make him out to be. And for you boomers, based is like, like
I'm
cool. I know, but you act like what?
And so, I'm Generation X.
I know you are.
Forgotten generation.
You are forgotten.
All right.
And I just think, look, Biden, like I said, Biden, there's 7,000 mercenaries, 7,000 troops and other mercenaries that are staying in Afghanistan. Again, the U.S. wouldn't leave without a deal. Again, the Taliban was created by Pakistan and the CIA to its current form, meaning they were radicalized to be in its current form. The United States has supported moderate rebels in the Middle East, then and Al-Qaeda as well, and then, of course, the Taliban. And this is something that's been happening forever. And now I wanted to go over this article that was in The Guardian in 2009.
Do you want to read your tweet first? Or
No.
Okay.
And this article goes how the U.S. Army protects its trucks by paying the Taliban. And I'm going to specifically point out to the pictures, Jonny, that I had, because it's a pretty long article. Basically, in the article, they talk about these two groups that are making money off of pretty much protecting U.S. trucks and convoys that go there, right? And I'm just going to read this part here where it says, "Welcome to the wartime contracting bazaar in Afghanistan. It is a virtual carnival of improbable characters and shady connections, with former CIA officials and ex-military officers joining hands with former Taliban and Mujahideen to collect U.S. government funds in the name of war effort. In this grotesque carnival, the U.S. military's contractors are forced to pay suspected insurgents to protect American supply routes. It is an accepted fact of the military logistics operation in Afghanistan that the U.S. government funds the very forces and it cut off American troops are fighting." Okay. So then it goes on to say it's a big part of their income, one of the top Afghan government security officials admits. In fact, U.S. military officials in Kabul estimate that a minimum of 10% of Pentagon logistics contracts, hundreds of millions of dollars, consist of payments to insurgents. I mean, this is in 2009, by the way, right? Then it talks about the NCL, which is a licensed security company in Afghanistan. This is one of the two companies they were talking about, in addition to Watan Risk. And this holdings, NCL Holdings, is mostly notable for in Kabul is identifying its chief principal Hamad Wardak, who was the son of the Afghan current defense minister of that time, right? This is 2009. General Rahim Wardak, who was the leader of the Mujahideen against the Soviets. Mm-hmm. So what you know is that it's crazy to me that people forgot about this. This is why I'm bringing it up. And so in 2009, the firm with no apparent trucking experience was named as one of the 6 companies that would handle all of the U.S. trucking in Afghanistan, bringing supplies to the web of bases and remote outposts scattered across the country. So this was back in 2009 when this was happening. And we've talked about the Mujahideen here. We've talked about the how the Mujahideen pretty much worked against the Soviets with the United States. And the Mujahideen, we know, were the radicals, the actual, Islamic radicals. This is like common sense, but I think a lot of people don't understand how this plays into today, because a lot of what's happening today is you can't ignore everything that's been happening. The deals that the Taliban has been making with the United States for guardianship of the fields and of course of these convoys, and also the weapons that these people are using are American made. And I just wanted to also the last part I think here about the military, because the amount of money that the military spent each of the military 6 trunking contracts was bumped up to $36 million, or a total of $2.2 billion. And just to put it in perspective, right? To put this in perspective, that's a 2-year effort. A 2-year effort to hire Afghan trucks and truckers was worth 10% of the annual Afghan gross domestic product. NCL, the firm run by this defense minister's well-connected son, struck gold. So this is what kept the U.S. military efforts alive in Afghanistan. And they said, quote, "We supply everything the Army needs to survive here." One American trucker executive said, "We bring them their toilet paper, their water, their fuel, their guns, their vehicles." And then they said the real secret to trucking in Afghanistan is security on perilous roads controlled by warlords, tribal militias, insurgents, and Taliban commanders. The American executive that the journalist talked to said the Army is basically paying the Taliban not to shoot at them. It is a Department of Defense money. This is what our Department of Defense is paying them, and basically they're paying people in local areas, some warlords, some politicians in the police force, to move their trucks throughout the area. This is why this shit matters, because we have been the Department of Defense has been paying for this to happen because U.S. interest was in the opium fields, it was in the weapons, it was in moving weapons and transporting them. But in addition, I just want to point out this tweet that this woman had. Her name is Nar Adli, and she said by 2014, Afghanistan was producing three times, guys, as much opium as it did in the year 2000. By 2014. By 2015, Afghanistan was the source of 90% of the world's opium poppy. This happened while U.S. military was supposedly guarding the fields. And they were guarding the field for ourselves.
Yeah.
And now we have an opioid crisis in America.
I just want to remind people that when the Taliban took over, they started burning the fields left and right. This is an ultra-conservative, theocratic, principle. Like, oh, it's the drugs, we're going to burn all this shit and stuff like that. So they burned them all down. And that was part of the argument where a lot of people said the other day, fam, when you're like some type of deal was made, a lot of people think, and people have been pointing this out, I've been seeing this all over the intranet, that they think they made a deal for the opium fields, that they somehow convinced the Taliban, like, hey, if you want us to leave, you got to protect the fields for us and let us have this crop. So, the Taliban's one of those groups that they are strong on their principles. Even if they don't like what's going on, they'll say, fuck you, we have God on our side, that's it. Like I said, they're ultra theocratic. Mm-hmm. So this might have been something over the course of these 20 years to eventually say, okay, listen, we need international support. We're going to have to give the Americans their poppy fields. We don't know. This is just kind of guessing. Mm-hmm. But this is an area, when you talk about 90% of the poppy coming out of there, the opium coming out of the poppy fields, this is something we have to really think about over here when we're talking about deals being made. I'm sorry, go ahead, fam.
No. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. You can't ignore this like it's in a separate, it's a separate thing. It's all connected as to what could be the potential reason. You have to ask why right now. Why are they making this deal? And people who think that Joe Biden is cognizant enough to make this decision on their own are out of your goddamn mind. Oh, but it's because mainstream media is attacking him and blah blah blah. I'm like, yeah, this is all part of the theater. The neocons are gonna say he's not, America enough, and then the liberals are gonna be like, oh well, we have to protect the women, and so of course, this is actually perfectly in line with how the media propaganda machine responds. The question is, are you asking why? Are you asking so many other factors that the money, right? Because it's always about following the money too.
Yeah, it absolutely follow the money, and that's something that's really like, we're not talking about this to say, oh, look at these smart, stupid opinions, these smart people making dumb opinions about Joe Biden. It's not about that. Not about, because a lot of people say we're very cynical and we can't even take a victory when it comes our way. But we've showed you videos of Joe Biden pushing for nation building as we were calling it in live time. We're like, he goes, it was never about nation building. I'm like, you're lying. I got a video of you in 2007 saying about, well, let's go with our NATO allies to go in there and help build up Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? After pushing for a surge. And that's the thing that just blows my mind. Now we're going to give him credit for a war he was for before he was against. And yet the thought process, fam, of thinking that he made this decision on his own. Guys, it was so bad that the moment we left, the Taliban was at the gates. It was like Vietnam all over again. That's how bad we failed. And the fact to think like he made a choice like we were going to stay there, no, it was that bad. We were losing. The American forces and the Afghan government were losing territory after territory after territory. This was inevitable. This wasn't some just like, oh my God, I'm going to go against the will and I'm going to pull people out of Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's what they think it was.
It's disgusting.
And I wouldn't even go as far as to compare it to Vietnam, because I think that was a little bit different. But like what I am saying is, I think there was for me, I think there was some sort of deal made, and that's why they let them take over. I think the United States was obviously losing in terms of they weren't gaining anything out of this, and they were just, spending money.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's a reason and some sort of deal made that this happened. Now, the next thing I think I wanted to talk about was the just bold journalism from The Intercept. This is what I mean by, you would think that this is great work, right, from The Intercept. You would think like, oh, this is amazing, blah blah blah. But of course, our friends and us, and we see through a lot of the bullshit. So Ryan Grimm's Intercept, and I think this was Ken Klippenstein and Sarah Sirota who wrote this. The Taliban have seized U.S. military biometrics devices. The Taliban have seized. How the hell did the Taliban get a hold of these devices? I mean, you're telling me that the U.S. intelligence agencies who
they left them.
are responsible for toppling governments all over the world, pushing mass surveillance on Americans, are really just going to leave devices for the Taliban to seize? You think so? They're just gonna leave it for them to seize? Of course, they had a specific reason for freaking leaving them. Obviously, and it did. I wonder if they know how to use them too. I wonder if the Taliban is somehow just well versed in using these devices. And biometrics devices, just in case you don't know, are devices that measure like your eyes and you can
identify somebody for the retina.
Breathing, all these things. Like, it's related to your biology.
They should cross out the seized and just put found.
Yeah.
The Taliban have found U.S. military biometrics devices with instructions how to use them.
It's laughable because this whole time they're talking about the devices, and I'm just going to say that these are known as HIIDE, the handheld interagency identity detection equipment. And again, here it was seized during the Taliban's offensive, according to a Joint Special Operations Command official and 3 former U.S. military personnel. U.S. military personnel work for the U.S. military and state agencies. So you're going to get something very much PR approved.
Exactly.
As a journalist, you have to go a little bit further than that. Anyway, so they scan, fingerprints, look at your iris. It's very, deep state type of technology, which is interesting because they do use that on Americans. But that's my whole thing I wanted to point out. Like, there's so much more to this than the Taliban seizing the biometrics, and the mass surveillance of us it isn't a coincidence, guys. They wouldn't just leave this unless there was some sort of like deal being made, right? And I wanted to point out to the ridiculousness of some people. Look at what Michael Moore did, because this is why I'm telling you the surveillance state internationally, foreign policy wise, is extremely similar to the surveillance state that is being imposed on Americans now and has been for a while, but now it's at an all-time high. Michael Moore said, "They're Taliban, our Taliban. Everybody's got a Taliban. They're at their best when they confiscate the halls of power."
What a friggin' douche, man. Wow. I have a painting of Michael Moore that I got a long time ago when I saw Bowling for Columbine, which the movie really propelled me into getting into politics more. And it was an amazing movie, even a sicko movie. But this is just what happens to people. People really got TDS, and it really affected their brains. And this is some fucking... This is some bullshit.
Look at this. Johnny won't see it, but there's the American Taliban, this old lady. Remember the old lady with the little flag that she was holding?
The American Taliban.
Oh God, it's just ridiculous.
It is really ridiculous to do this shit.
Ridiculous.
And it's dangerous.
It is dangerous.
It's dangerous. You don't do this shit. You're talking about, all right, the Trump supporters walking through the shaman and everything like that, and you're showing a picture of Taliban fighters. And you're comparing the two to Americans. There it is, Johnny.
That's
the American Taliban.
I mean,
in the ropes, and you can see the ropes, and they're like, please stay in the ropes. I mean,
she's holding an American flag, for crying out loud. But she's not holding like a radical, like anti-American. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people support America.
Yeah.
Like, they support. Like, it's crazy.
And they're
to me.
not crazy.
Sippy cup too.
What's that?
She's got a sippy cup.
I know, a little sippy cup with the straw. I mean, guys, do you realize how dangerous this shit is, though? This is like,
it's funny,
this is
but
like
it's
you
dangerous.
really you're comparing people to the Taliban fighters in Afghanistan. You know what I'm saying? That have been, fighting and killing soldiers and other tribes for so long. I mean, the Taliban, what they would do back in the days when they took over, they would do like a polo style game with the heads of their enemies.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? If not, they'd have with sheep. And this is real stuff. These guys were cold-blooded killers. And they lived in war zones for over 30 fucking years. Over 30 years. You know what I'm saying? And you're going to compare them to the people walking in the Capitol? Michael Moore, shame on you.
And not only that, he's using state agency talking points because you know who compared the insurrectionists, quote unquote, on January 6th to the Taliban. That was like the state agencies. The department released the bulletin where they were comparing the Taliban or the Trump supporters to the Taliban and to any Al-Qaeda type of terrorists. They directly compared them to that, and then guess what? Where that whole narrative was spun? It was spun on MSNBC, on CNN, where they were saying, "Oh yes, these are the same." That's the same exact narrative that he's spinning, and it's dangerous because now anybody that somehow challenges power is labeled as a domestic violent extremist. So now we're all pretty much in this whole thing. And when you validate that, you're validating these state agency talking points. You're pretty much saying that any sort of opposition to the government is now comparable to the Taliban, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Unless you get in line and capitulate, you're now the enemy. And what it does is make the people on the right, Trump supporters, go, look at BLM. They're terrorists. They're burning down everything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So now you got both sides going just demonizing each other to the fullest extent, and then we got people like us in the middle going, guys, stop, they're doing this to you guys, they're pitting you guys against each other. Yeah, you guys are different in ideology, but you're not cold-blooded killers here. You know what I'm saying? You're not each other's enemy, the enemy of the people above who are making us play into the divide and conquer playbook. Stop.
And I just wanted to mention, too, the virtue signaling coming from, of course, the usual suspects. Now, here, Ilhan Omar.
Oh, we love her.
So here it is again, right? How many more lives, American lives, is it worth? How many endless rows of headstones at Arlington National Cemetery? Thank you, Mr. President, for learning from past mistakes and for clearly articulating the costs of endless war.
I can't believe they're like giving this guy credit.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Because they had to make Biden look like, oh, well, look what Biden did. He took our troops out of Afghanistan. Trump didn't do that, even though they were all bitching when Trump was trying to do it. Yeah.
And he fought against the mainstream media and everybody that wanted him to stay for women's rights.
Yeah, so you see how they're playing, especially the progressives who are like, oh, but you wanted them to leave, so see, they're leaving. But they're not telling you the behind-the-scenes deals that were made and all of this that was planned this way. So Biden just did this out of the kindness of his heart, right, by himself. And here people like Ilhan, a member of the squad, are giving him credit where he deserves none. And not only that, but she's learning from past mistakes as a point to, oh, look, Trump didn't do it. Oh, look, others didn't do it. So look, the Democratic president did it. Yeah. So now, preparing for the next presidential election, A Republican wouldn't have done that. You have to vote for the Democrat. Look what Joe Biden did. Do you not see how they frame everything? Everything these people do, guys, is 5 chess moves ahead of everybody else. And you have to understand that. It's not that I give them that much credit. I think they're idiots, but I think they're also extremely intelligent at manipulation and extremely intelligent at psychological manipulation in particular. Yeah. And that is because you read all the things the CIA has done and all the sort of mind manipulations they do. This is just classic. This is like perfectly set up for Biden to look like he's doing something that he really isn't doing. It's gross.
And learning from the past mistakes, and I'm sorry because I'm like clinching right now, and I'm just like fucking grinding my teeth here. What did he learn from his past mistakes?
Right.
He gets his past mistakes, this motherfucking warmonger. And Ilhan Omar, Biden has bombed Somalia twice now. Your homeland. And you want to sit there and say, thank you, Mr. President, as he's bombing a bunch of nomads in Somalia? Are you kidding me?
It's disgusting. But this is what progressives eat up. This is what I'm saying. Like, I think these people are so dangerous because they're completely reinforcing people's belief in the system. That's what they're there to do. Just rebranding it as better. Look at this. There'll be plenty of time for confronting the repeated failures of Afghanistan policy over the course of 4 presidencies. The urgency of the moment now demands we marshal an international coalition to evacuate every Afghan citizen who is fleeing for their lives. My statement. And there she has her statement. I'm not going to read it necessarily, but she's, she does a whole statement pretty much talking about the failures of Afghan policy, and then she's talking about human rights activists and women, blah blah blah. Here it is. This is the last part I wanted to read. Here. The last 2 lines, Johnny. In the meantime, the urgency of the moment in us now demands we marshal an international coalition to evacuate every Afghan citizen who is fleeing for their lives. This is an American responsibility. It is also a NATO responsibility, and it is also a human responsibility. Notice how they put in NATO. We must hold the airport in Kabul and lead a multinational airlift operation. We have the capacity, and we must find the will to get them out. There will also be Afghan human rights activists and women in civil society who choose to stay. We have an obligation to them too. The president has been clear that the end of the war does not mean the end of our commitment to the Afghan people. We must begin to prove that with this airlift operation, and then I look forward to working with him to ensure that when the headlines and emotions of this deeply painful moment subside, we are still focused on the people to whom we owe an enormous amount.
Can I say something too, fam?
I mean, this is just...
The whole pullout was a big fucking failure. I mean, I didn't want to start, go putting in other different tweets I saw with these other veterans that said that we made the Afghan people promises, we had time to get them out. And when they sit here and they go, this shit happened so rapidly. Dude, it's been 21 years. This didn't happen rapidly. You know what I'm saying? You extended the time to stay in there. How the hell did you not get all these people out now? Now you want to act like it was like, oh my God, we can get all these people out. You extended the time. They don't give a fuck.
They don't give a fuck. This is all PR. This is all PR. And also the fact that she is pretty much signaling to that the U.S. involvement still in Afghanistan shows you that we're not. I mean, with NATO there, do you really think like we're actually 100% out? And like if we don't have a reason to, we're not just going to go in there and find a way to manipulate things from behind the scenes. This is what I genuinely believe. That's why I'm not, cheerleading Biden. Do I think it's good that we get out? Absolutely. I think it's good that we remove troops in general, but that's not really what is happening just because this is an anti-imperialist president wanting to remove troops. That's not what's happening here. Yeah, Biden is not in danger from the deep state. Biden is part of the deep state. Like, guys, come on, don't be so obtuse here. Johnny had a great tweet because Niko pointed out how the U.S. wants you to think it treats refugees versus how they actually treat refugees, including Miss Alexandria Overflow Facilities Cortez. And, she said, we have a moral obligation to the Afghan people. The U.S. role in this crisis is indisputable. We must waste no time or expense in helping refugees safely and swiftly leave Afghanistan. We must immediately welcome them to the U.S. and provide real support as they rebuild their lives. And of course, Niko put the picture of the influx facilities. Yeah. And Johnny says...
Johnny, read the tweet. Go ahead, buddy.
No. You want me to read it or Johnny? Okay. Right. Those crossing the border are fleeing countries that helped U.S. destabilize as well. the U.S. helped destabilize as well. If you agree the U.S. should welcome Afghan refugees, you should have the same stance for Hispanic immigrants from the global South. Better if U.S. never destabilized their homes in the first place. Agree.
Absolutely.
So they go from situation and issue to try to virtue signal, right? When it was politically convenient, AOC and the Democrats were virtue signaling to the Latino community about immigrants and kids in cages because they wanted people to vote for Joe Biden because Trump was putting kids in cages. Joe Biden's doing the same exact thing. They shifted the name to influx facilities. Here we have the Afghanistan situation. The same thing is happening. They're like, oh, they didn't even give it two crap. I've never heard AFC talk about Afghanistan. Ever. Yep. Until now, right? And so now, the momentum is there. Let's focus on the refugees. Not saying we shouldn't help refugees. Obviously we should, but it is the political manipulation, the convenience that they're using to weaponize emotion in people to say, look at us, look at the difference we're making in people's lives, the Democratic Party, yay. Again, here is another member of the squad reinforcing your belief and your trust in a failed party. In a two-party illusion that we live in an empire, in imperialism. She's reinforcing your belief that this can be mended in this way.
Sorry, my bad. My bad. Pedro agrees because he's upset. And, and it's the symptom. Refugees are the symptom of the actual policy that's going on. And we don't talk about the issue of imperialism and how it leads to mass migrations to the United States. Yep. And that's something we need to focus on. And as Joe Biden's got in there, I didn't think he can amp up the regime change mentality in Venezuela. He has. He's amped up regime change mentality in Nicaragua. He's even put themselves in positions for El Salvador, poking at their government now to usher in a regime change when they're ready. Who knows what's going to happen in Peru? So we should talking about what's actually going on. And Biden has been worse. I didn't think it could be possible, but he's been worse than Donald Trump in the global South. So we should really be calling out what he's doing right now so we won't have the refugees. And just the last two really quick things right here when it comes to this before we get to look at the Afghan papers. We have our guest coming on soon. Ron Paul said this 10 years. He said 10 years ago, if we don't pull out right now, we had a vote on the floor to defund the whole war. If we don't pull out now, we'll be there for another 10 years. Ron Paul 10 years ago. And what happened? 10 years. And now here's his son 10 years later on the floor trying to defund the Afghan war again. Got a vote on the floor. Both time, fam, it fell on deaf ears. Here we go.
So we continue to pour good money after bad into Afghanistan, hoping that the outcome will somehow change, hoping that maybe the first 20 years will produce better results than the last 20 years did. This NDAA, this defense authorization that we're debating here in the Senate, even has a sense of the Senate in it, opposing a precipitous withdrawal from Afghanistan. We've been there for 20 years. How can we characterize withdrawal after 20 years after we defeated the enemy as precipitous? It's crazy. The American people say, come home, and this is your chance. Many people have said we should end the war. Today you get to vote. Are you for staying in Afghanistan for another generation? Are you for continuing a war that has lost its purpose? Today we get to vote. Up or down, are you for the war or against the war? Does the war still have a mission? The American people know better. They are ready to declare victory and come home. It's why...
All right.
Yeah.
It fell on deaf ears, fam. Where was the squad then?
Where was Bernie Sanders?
Where was Bernie Sanders? He wasn't even a co-sponsor on that bill. Senator Udall was. You know what I'm saying? But that's the thing, that they play politics. I don't know. Maybe they couldn't jump in because it was Donald Trump and they didn't want to give him the victory to try to get out of Afghanistan, so they wanted to stall.
So that's more important.
Tactics.
That's more important than doing the right thing, right? And real quick, we're gonna have our guests on, and I want to do a deep dive into this because I think there's so much information that you could learn from the Afghan papers. The Washington Post basically was fought in a 3-year-long battle from 2016 to 2019 to get a hold of some of these interviews, and this is actually something good that they did. And I just wanted to point out that a couple of quotes from this. If you just go down to like the 5th paragraph, They said, we were devoid of fundamental understanding of Afghanistan. We didn't know what we were doing. This is from Douglas Lute, a 3-star Army general who served as a White House Afghan war czar during the Bush and Obama administrations. He told government interviewers this in 2015. He added, what are we trying to do here? We didn't have the foggiest notion of what we were undertaking. Then, if the American people knew the magnitude of this dysfunction, 2,400 lives lost, Lute added, blaming the deaths of U.S. military personnel and bureaucratic breakdowns among Congress, the Pentagon, and the State Department. Who will say this was in vain? And guys, it goes on. You guys can read it. It's they actually have the link to the actual documents that you can look at. Yeah. And I think it's important to read. It's a lot. There's like different sections. There's, what the general said, then there's just divided by what had to do with nation building and with how they lost, etc. There's different divisions, but that is something good that I think that was attained, and that's the kind of thing people need to read to really understand just how bad it was. And like I said, I want to do a deep dive on this because this is like a lot of information, but I just wanted to remind people that this was released 2 years ago in 2019, and it's just if you read this and then you still think that Joe Biden did this alone, I don't know what to tell you, but I think that would change your mind if you think that this is some sort of win.
Complete fucking failure, loss of lives, and we were there for so fucking long we didn't need to be there. So just a little bit of ridiculous. Johnny, anything else on that? Really quickly, I think we have one more tip before we get going. It's Carrie Mark. Thank you so much. But the Taliban are America's army now. All part of the plan. That's Carrie Mark jumping on in. Huh? We don't have her on yet? Do you want to go to a quick break or you want to?
No. Right. We can start talking about this. Right? We can start. So, guys, we're going to be going to... I'll give you guys a minute because we need all of you to get onto the Rokfin.
Yes, we have to do that.
We need all of you to 100% just get on there because we're going to be talking about something important. And these things that are on Rokfin, I really wish that more people on YouTube would go. I don't know why you don't. You don't even have to sign up anymore. Of course, we'd love for you to sign up and follow us, whatever. But, you don't have to. You can literally just click the link and it goes there, because these are the things that we want the people to know about, because most people aren't talking about this. I can count on one hand the independent media that's talking about this particular issue, with the boop boop, as Pasta says, because they don't want to be looked at as conspiracy theorists. They don't want to be, attacked, and this is what's happening. People are getting attacked, and I applaud the Gray Zone for touching this subject. And I've seen Max's tweets, and I've seen the route he's going, and he's actually doing bold journalism and questioning when it comes to COVID. It's like the biggest story right now of our time, and very few people are touching the various issues with that. Yeah. And so for me, it's important that we continue pushing independent media, because now, we're not alone. We're now more and more people are covering it, and we're not crazy. What's happening needs to be said. It needs to be talked about, and that's why we're doing this, because it's not fun to get attacked as anti-vax or a bunch of all the things that we get called. Yeah. But I think it's worth it when you're talking about, real journalism. It's a type of pioneering that is rare in independent media these days. You could sit there and talk about a bunch of things that are safe, but once you start hitting these topics, I think that's where the real learning comes, and the real borders you cross.
It takes a lot of guts to do what Max did, and when we started doing it took a lot of guts for us to do it. The fact that we have to go over to Rokfin every single time can just tell you it's just ridiculous that we have to do that, because these are not, just the way the language is. Like you talked about the whole, they call you an anti-vaxxer if you're just against this vaccine,
right?
And that is,
or if you're even questioning, if you're, I have friends who are right now fighting to keep their jobs because they don't want to take, and it's women too, a lot of women, and this is what we're going to talk about here with Marcie. Go ahead, Pasta.
Marcie Smith Parenti. How you doing? Everybody get on over to Rokfin, Rokfin. We have our guest with us. We're going to talk about this great article that was written. Truth here, ladies and gentlemen. I saw it was on the Gray Zone. I saw Max's name. I started reading it. I'm like, wow, Max is like getting into all this stuff now that he's a dad and everything like that. And I reached out to Max. I said, Max, this was fire, this article. He goes, I didn't write it. But the